Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's segment of Al's Pals, we're going to answer another question. But before we do that, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself.
I am Cory. Nice to meet you all, and know you, Al.
Well, do you want to give me more information? I mean, I met Cory in class. We go to the same university.
I am I guess my Chiron for here. I am a non-traditional student that was a musician and then a chef, and then I have a history degree, and I came back for journalism because I like to learn and waste state's money while doing so. Yeah. And I bartend right now.
Okay. Well, today's question is going to kind of be the same as last week, with a little bit more of a tweak to have a better understanding. So today's question is going to be, do or can people change once they've left a relationship, I suppose? Like if you were to date somebody and then either have some time apart or you broke up, and 48 hours later they're like, I can change, I don't know. So that's kind of the premises of my question.
Yeah. Well, I think, it is loaded in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
I think that one of the main things that I've always seen and experienced myself is that depending on how a relationship ends, specifically, because I think a lot of times when we think about relationships ending, we think about nefarious things that had happened, or someone cheated, or said the wrong thing. Sometimes people don't realize that relationships can just end naturally in the sense of just being like,
like mutual?
Yeah, like not necessarily even mutual, but just being like, it's just kind of dissipated to a point where you're like, all right. Because I think one thing about us as a culture that like we changed, I think mainly, especially when it comes to relationships, and it has to deal with more woke-ish culture, but understanding that our dreams are not the same dreams as our parents when it came to relationships. Not all of us are always looking to find a husband or a wife. And so we go into these relationships not necessarily thinking that far in the future. I mean, we're, as a generation, haven't really been taught to even plan that far ahead. So when you get to that point where it can get serious or whatever, that's when it becomes surprising. But, just like anything in life, it takes practice, whether you have to practice with the person you're with or practice with the next person. You're practicing for this better, and, in a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
So changing outside of a relationship, if you're conscious about it, you look back, which is why winter exists in my mind. Like you have to I'm just stuck inside and think about all the things I did wrong this year. Try to become a better person in that way. But you think oh man, I guess maybe I didn't listen as much as I should. And I think specifically in that way, it's like saying getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone always feels like when they do say that, when you hear that, because I've been told it.
What?
That it's like I changed, or I've probably definitely said it. I can't think of a specific time, but I'm not absolved of that. But I definitely, it's like when you say it and you really believe it. It's the same idea like when you were a kid and you're like, no, I will clean my room. We're out cleaning the basement. And my parents are like, you promise? You're like, yeah, and it's like completely. But yeah, you get back in that relationship and you get comfortable again, and it's like knowing all the shortcuts, kind of thing. And I think that's where a lot of it, when it comes to most serious things, like adultery, or not adultery, but yeah, adultery, cheating, that kind of thing. That is such a specific personality trait to be able to think that that's okay. It's the same idea of shoplifting or any of those little things that you think you can get away with, and as long as you're not caught, there's no consequence. I had one of my friends, I'm gonna not say his name, for him, who that son of a gun. But he told me one time, and I almost smacked him. I was like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard, was he said, I cheat on my girlfriends because it makes me care about them more. And I was like, I know.
What?
Yeah. And but it's the same. It's the same thing with plenty of my girlfriends or women that I've known and become friends with have just as backwards of logic when it comes to certain things, specifically in relationships. That is specific. So changing. It's like, yes, you want to better yourself in the next relationship. Coming back into it, all the pitfalls in yourself, but are you strong enough to actually make it through that and get to the point? And also not necessarily knowing the end game of a relationship, but getting there. Knowing that and understanding, is there something that I'm really fighting for besides just warm comfort and
companionship, as
and-
Olivia said last week.
it's specific. If you find someone that you really love and care about, that it's worth fighting for. It's something that it's like not just like my friend Shannon. I'll say her name. Love her to death. Oh, Shannon, if you ever see this, she always called herself a serial monogamist. She never cheated, but man, she was in that sense of the word, a man eater. Like she would go through them. They would date, like, she had longer relationships, but she was like 2-3 months and then she'd move on to the next one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of like, I mean, I don't know Shannon, but kind of the girl that has to always be in a relationship type.
Yeah, always. And if they don't feel comfortable with themselves, and I know a lot of people like that always have to be in relationships, and they will find that relationship because then they get scared on their own. They never give themselves a chance to learn, and I think that's the biggest thing about changing is
you have to be alone, right?
you have to do it yourself.
Yeah, I don't consider myself that type of person that always has to be in a relationship, and I don't necessarily feel like I'm ever looking for them either. I honestly feel like most of the relationships I've been in have just come to me when I wasn't looking for it. And I really think that's how it works. You find what you're looking for when you're not looking for it. So stop looking for it, I guess. But I was going to say, the thing that I guess sparked this whole question is, do people change? Is my original question is because I have had 2 exes come back to me before, and they're like, I've changed. And so I guess that was the whole reason I sparked this question is like, did they really change? Can people change? And then that's why I try to clarify it in this episode, because I want to say, can people change, I guess, after you've been apart? And I quote apart because I had been with somebody, and then we weren't technically boyfriend-girlfriend, but we weren't dating. Well, I just said that. So we weren't dating, but we were together. So like we weren't.
What was the length of time between the relationships? Between like you guys breaking up and then getting back together?
So I guess like we broke up, and then I gave him a week to because people were like, you need space. I was like, okay, whatever. So I gave him space, and then after that, we decided that we would be together but not together, if that makes any sense.
Okay. So you guys were together now?
I mean, pretty much, but obviously we didn't have the title of you're my boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend.
There was a hair that just moved over. It's good. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I thought you were saying it was like hanging up like a thread or something. And so then, so since we weren't together, I started seeing somebody because we weren't together, and I wasn't cheating, and I mean, at some point in time, he said, I want you to see other people, so then I did, and then that's when he's like, I've changed, and then so, like, that's what really sparked the question. I was like, did he really change? I do think he did change, for a short amount of time, but that's why I was saying, because, I'm not the same person I was when I was 18, and I said that last week, I've changed, but I also haven't, I guess, gotten back with, like, my high school boyfriend, or, like, my first college boyfriend. But I'm sure if I did, I definitely wouldn't be the same person I was. But that was years apart, being with other people.
Right, and I think that's like, because it is like you're talking about something very micro versus something very macro. At the core, I don't think we change a lot. Like you are still yourself no matter what, right?
I mean, I guess, but then you have to go into the
authenticity. Right, but Alejandra, going back to like 18-year-old Alejandra, you were still yourself, let's do yourself now. But you've learned more.
Maybe.
You become better or whatever.
I feel like when I was 18, hey mom, if you're watching this, we have a big Mexican family. There's 5 of us kids, and then there's my mom and my stepdad, and there's a lot of yelling in the house, fighting and everything, which is normal to us. It's not like crazy, like we don't have to call police or anything, but so I think when I was 18 and living at home, I used to get angry a lot, and I would lash out maybe on my boyfriend, and even my first college boyfriend, because I just moved out. I felt like I was like mean. I would say things to get under his skin because I knew how to do that because I have siblings and that's my job.
Oh yeah.
And now
just digging that.
no, I was like, there's something that I said I still feel so bad about today, so I highly doubt he's watching this. But so then the next guy I had dated, I kind of told myself like I just, after living away from home too, I felt like I wasn't constantly getting mad all the time. Like I kind of calmed down. I didn't lash out anymore, and I don't, because I kind of told myself, I'm like, if you love somebody so much, like why are you going to tell them like the meanest things? Like, because I don't want to say what I said, but I said like really something so mean to my first college boyfriend, and I like regret it to this day because it was just so effed up. And then you know, and so like when I was with my
When the cameras aren't rolling, you're gonna tell me what you said.
right. Anyway,
Because I'm gonna use it against somebody.
oh gosh, it was really mean. But and then with a guy that I was with most recent, you know, I'd get mad, but instead of saying, oh, like, I don't know, whatever I could say to get under his skin, because I'm sure I know what gets under their skin, I would just maybe, you know, be quiet, you know, bite your tongue. Some things are better left unsaid. Like, you learn these little relationship concepts when you get older. So I don't know, maybe, so after telling you that, you think I'm still the same person I was when I was 18?
Well, yeah, I think that, like I said, like at the core, you're Alejandra. Like that's what I was saying at the beginning of like, when you're in relationships, you learn as you get out of them. And then try and become, if you want to be a better person in a relationship, like get to those points. Like, and I think that sometimes, specifically like this whole, like the people who are in and out of relationships, because I know people, I've had friends, specifically like one of my best friends for a long time, dated this girl on and off, had a kid with her, everything. I mean, on and off for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And like they would break up, get back together, you know, like that stupid song. But yeah, so like those type of cyclical relationships, when you're thinking, like every time you're thinking like I need space or get space or learn, it's more of just like I want a hall pass. I just want to get away from you for a little bit, kind of thing. I'm not saying this in your case, but like, you know, I like personally, like you see a lot of that happen. And I'm trying to segue into like, because I went through a relationship. One of the most defining moments of my life was a relationship with a girl that I fought for from the beginning. We were friends, became best friends, then dated on and off, but she was also in love with something else, and it was a drug.
I was gonna say.
And it eventually killed her, you know, over time, which is normal. That happens to people that use a certain drug. But one of the biggest things is like, because back then I was a musician, like I said, and I played a lot, and she was a musician too. And like, from helping her through her struggle bus with the drug, and then like we lived like gypsies, we shared everything, but we were on and off in that way of sometimes she literally just disappeared for weeks. And it was about a year into that relationship that finally I was like, you know, I got tired of getting phone calls from her sister or mom or dad, you know, do you know where she is? And I did know where she was this one specific time, and I think it was around this time of year, it was right before Thanksgiving. And I went down to the house and I knew she was at, and I knew the guy that lived there because he was a friend of hers from high school and a huge enabler for her. And I just like, he never kept his door locked. So I like test the door. Here we go. Bam! I kicked it in. He stood up and like, sit down, you know. Went in and she was like half passed out, half alive on a kind of like mattress on the floor, and she's like, I'm not messed up. I'm like, okay. I just needed to be able to break up with her in person. I couldn't do it over text. I didn't think that was a real thing. But after that, like throughout time, she'd always come back into my life, like for a very long time. And it was always in like these moments, and because she knew, I knew too. I would never, ever, ever be able to say, no, I'm not there to help you. No, I'm not there to be. I love you. Yeah. And whether she's like, I'm clean right now, or I've changed, you know. I think only one time she stole money from me, which I was too stupid to even think like, oh, I was pissed. And then I think I took her guitar strings, so I needed to string my guitar. She didn't take that much money to do. She took like $20, but I was like, fine, I get you marking guitar strings. But yeah, it was like always that time where it was like, you hear change, you want to believe that someone changes. But sometimes change is either chemically dependent or dependent on someone else's circumstance, and though they want to so bad, they can't. And you want them to too. And that was like the biggest thing, is like throughout all that, and I finally, you know, helped in the last year of her life, because there was a 2-year period we didn't talk. And she came back, called me out of the blue, and was just like, hey, I'm here. And I was just like, oh shit, here we go again. You know, kind of moment. And I was like, all right. And I did. I definitely like was at arm's length with her. You know, we did end up once again becoming intimate. But and she really wanted to get like close back in a relationship and everything like that. But I knew it was going to happen to both me and her. And that because I was a certain sense of comfort that could end up leading her back into her old life.
Yeah.
And so eventually she moved to a different state, was doing great, and then that one person showed back up in her life that enabled her, and she passed away. So in all those ways, it's okay. But the same idea is like change is so intense to think about when it comes to like loving somebody, carrying through like the thick and thin. And I think that's like a big thing that, you know, if you look at like, are your parents still together?
Not my biological dad and my mom, but my stepdad and my mom.
Mm-hmm. And they've been married a long time.
I mean, yeah.
Like
I don't, not long, but like, I think more than 10 years.
More than 10. Okay, that's good enough.
I feel like if
yeah.
my parents are watching this, they're like, do you
you
know when we got married?
You horrible daughter. No.
I think coming up on 20 years.
I'm sure you're a great daughter. I don't know. I don't even know how long my parents have been married. It's definitely been since before I was born. But they are still together too. And there are, I mean, we grew up as, like you said, same idea. We had I had three other siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Parents were still together. It was a battle royale in our house. We fought all the time.
Yeah.
And like my parents together, you know, they still fight to this day. And it's always like these moments where you're just like, oh, but like there was never this moment where like they didn't want to work through it. They had to work through it. I mean, partially it was because they had kids together, so they decided to stick it out. But like, yeah, there was definitely there was no like true infidelity in my family though.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like these weird catalyst moments to like, you know, that like would cause such a rift. But I think a lot of times, sometimes you have to come up with the equilibrium and what you can handle and or take in a relationship and what makes it worth it.
Yeah, I was like, because I think fighting's normal, which could be another question for the show as we wrap it up here. But I guess your final answer would probably be that no, you don't think people can change.
I do think people can change. I think it is just dependent upon that person, and I think that it's worth it to look inside yourself of, do you believe that the change is for the better, and is it worth it to stick it out to see that change for you?
Okay, and I guess my final answer is, I think people can change because I have changed, but according to Cory, you think I'm still me, 18.
Well, at your core, yeah, I'm still Cory. I'm still the same kid on the playground field. I just learned to better myself as a person.
Well, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, tell us what you think. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.